What's up, y'all? It's TBrown31 with JaboctheGreat. Welcome back to The Last Word and welcome back to another episode of our weekend picks. Once again, we got a huge weekend in college football and the NFL. Going to start with the last game, though, Ohio State and Notre Dame in the national championship. So in this one, I'm rocking with Ohio State once again, man. After that game against Texas, I said it, we were talking about it in the last video, talking about the semifinals. I think Ohio State probably could have put on Texas a whole lot more than they did if they didn't have all those stupid penalties. So as good as Notre Dame has been, defensively and even sometimes on offense, I just think Ohio State offensively is going to be too much for them. I'd probably give them a 10 to 14 point victory.
Man, that's a big call. I've been a Marcus Freeman supporter and believer throughout the playoffs so far. Unfortunately, I do think it stops here. I'm going to go with Ohio State. I think that offense is too much. I think the Notre Dame defense is really good. I'm not going to give it a 10 to 14 point swing. I feel like this one could be 7 to 3 points, but Ohio State is an incredibly dangerous offense. Notre Dame's defense is strong. I just think they'll get a little overwhelmed. I think, I've complimented Marcus Freeman for his coaching and the tricks he pulls. I think you're going to need a little more than that to get through this Ohio State team. I think they're really poised. I think they've been due for one. I think they're ready to get here. Ryan Day is certainly due for one. And so I feel like the stars are aligning here in Ohio State's favor. I think this would be a great game. I hope Notre Dame puts up a good fight. This is kind of crazy because I've seen so many posts about like we hate both these teams. It is a funny matchup for like who America likes, which is not typically either of these two teams. But yeah, I think the Ohio State offense is exceptional. I think their defense is pretty strong. I think the Notre Dame defense is pretty strong, and I think the Notre Dame offense is good. And so at the end of the day, I think Ohio State's got them on both ends, and I think they take this one probably, I would say, within one score. But I can understand picking it for higher with that way that offense can explode.
Spread right now is 8.5 points Ohio State's favor. So, we'll kind of see how that one turns out there. But switching to the NFL, the first game tomorrow, Houston Texans coming off of that huge victory against the Chargers, and the Kansas City Chiefs, who once again have a bye as the number one seed. Going with Kansas City in this one, I picked against the Chargers. I picked the Chargers against the Texans last week. Clearly, I was wrong. Justin Herbert had a master class, or a disaster class, I should say, last week. 4 interceptions. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to throw 4. At best, 1 or 2, maybe. Texans defense obviously played very well last week, but Chiefs, divisional round, I mean, this is generally a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm going with the Chiefs here. I would like to pick the Texans, but Chiefs got the bye. But they're going to, be pretty well rested, be pretty ready to go. The Texans have a great defense, and I do think that they could maybe even get a pick six on Pat and maybe one other interception. I think they make it tougher, maybe than it seemed against the Chargers. I think that I don't think they'll crush the Chargers or crush the Chiefs here, but I think they'll put up a little fight. Make Patrick make a mistake here or there, but at the end of the day, it's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. This is what they do. They've been here before. The core guys on offense have been there, and that defense is the best part of the Chiefs team right now. And that is one thing. Against the Chargers, they had a few good offensive moments, but the Texans pretty much beat them through defense. I think the Chiefs defense is going to hold down the Texans offense probably entirely, and I don't think the Texans defense can hold down the Chiefs offense enough. So as much as I would like for the Texans to stop the three-peat here, I think the Chiefs move on.
Coincidentally, this one is also an 8-point spread, so I think that one's probably a better pick there. NFL games are usually closer, but I would take Kansas City 8 points there.
Yeah.
And then moving to the other number one seed, we got the Lions, 15-2, best team in the NFC, going up against the Commanders, who are coming off of that victory in Tampa Bay last Sunday night. This one, I was thinking about it for a little bit, and I'm like, look, as good as the Commanders were, Lions, even with injuries, are getting guys back. 9.5 point spread. I'm not confident in that one. I'll be honest with that one there. I don't know about 9.5 points, but I think Lions definitely should probably win this one. I'd give them a 6-point victory. I think even with some of the issues that they've had defensively, obviously they had guys out. The points that they've allowed in the last couple games, I still think Detroit should be fine. They're still the better team right now. Should get a good victory.
This one feels like the Notre Dame pick for me. I've been a big supporter of the Commanders all season. Picked them in maybe some games I shouldn't have. Not going to happen here. I think they're a great team. I think they're going to make the Lions really work for it. I think at the end of the day, the Lions just got a little more going for them, a little more experience on the as far as like coaching in the playoffs with these guys, and being here and having the disappointment last year. I think their offense is really good. You're going to have David Montgomery back. That's going to be really bad for the Commanders' defense, which already struggled throughout most of the season. Aside from a few big games here, and then I think the Lions' defense, despite having a bunch of injuries, has actually been still pretty strong throughout the season, even with a lot of their guys out. I mean, they've had some games where they allowed a lot of points. They've had some games where they, one game, specifically Buffalo, where they lost because they allowed a lot of points. But otherwise, that defense has still looked pretty good. I do think the Commanders are going to make it close. Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell coaching against each other. We are not going to see a punt or a field goal. These guys are going to go for every possible thing they can go for. I think that might work out a little better for the Lions in this one. I would also say they could take it probably 6 or 7. I think, though, it'll be a one-score game. It'll be one of those games where it looks like the Commanders can use that end of the game luck and try to steal it. I think those will come up just a little short. Good run for a team led by a rookie QB. They hope to see them, kind of run it back, maybe a little stronger next year. But the Lions get them here.
Absolutely. And then moving to the other NFC matchup, we got the Rams and the Eagles. Rematch from Sunday Night Football a few months ago. Eagles put it on the Rams. I think it was 37-20, I believe. Not going to be the same case in this one. I am picking the Eagles. I was leaning towards the Rams. We always say on the podcast, look, we don't want to overreact to what happens in the previous week. But if you do pick the Rams, it's fair. I mean, the Rams played really well against the Vikings just last week, who we thought was one of the best teams in the NFL, not just the NFC. Beat them up. And then the Eagles, of course, against the Packers looked not too great. But you have to remember that Saquon Barkley performance against the Rams last time, and I understand the Rams are better than they were in that one. They still hadn't come alive just yet. Right now, though, I do think Jalen Hurts probably hears a whole lot of the criticism coming towards his way, and I understand Matthew Stafford's been there, done that. He's won a Super Bowl. McVay's been there, done that. He's done the same thing. I think at the end of the day, Eagles will get it done, and Jalen Hurts, he's got to come out. He's going to have a big game. I think they'll win.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes in the Rams' favor in this game, right? You just dismantled a Vikings defense that's incredibly strong, and the Eagles just struggled against the Packers defense that was a little beat up. I think you got the coaching edge with Sean McVay. I think you got clearly the experience edge. You just won a Super Bowl a few years ago. Eagles got theirs, within the last decade, but not quite as soon as yours has been. Despite that, though, I'm going to pick the Eagles. It might just be a Saquon Barkley tax. I think the Rams are incredibly dangerous. This could be like a quick upset. This game took a lot of thought for me to decide who to pick. But Jalen Hurts, I think, is due for a really big game. A lot of negative talk around his name. I feel like you got to hear that. You got to know you got to come into this one and play much harder than you played last week. And I think Saquon had an incredible performance against the Rams last time. Obviously, like you said, the Rams have gotten better, but you can't ignore what Saquon did last time. And despite not scoring a touchdown, he did still put up 120 yards last week. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think this would be a good game. I think they'll fight for it. Eagles will probably take it. I would honestly say by a field goal. But I do think that the Rams, despite how many things they kind of have on the edge here, are just a little bit outmatched. I think that Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts have amazing synergy this season. AJ Brown, if he puts the book down and gets in the end zone, I think will be good. I'm a history guy student, nothing against reading, but I don't think that that what AJ was doing last week made a whole lot of sense to me. But despite that, I mean, he's still been great. He's a great receiver. I think there's just a lot of talent on that Eagles offense, and I think they'll kind of have a little more synergy to overpower that Rams defense than the Vikings did last week.
Yeah, so now we're going to get to probably the biggest game of the playoffs so far. Highly anticipated matchup. Obviously, right now I would say Lamar Jackson's probably going to win MVP. Some people think it's going to be Josh Allen. That's a huge debate. But either way, these are going to be the top two guys in that MVP race. Facing off in Buffalo, literally just until about 30 seconds ago, I was going to pick the Ravens. And then I saw that the Ravens were actually favored in this one. And then I saw that Zay Flowers is actually going to be doubtful for the game on Sunday night. And I understand that Zay Flowers missed the last game, of course, against Pittsburgh, but it's Pittsburgh, and they literally ran all over Pittsburgh. So, of course, they're going to try to lean on the running game, but I think with that being said, I think the Bills actually pull this one out. So I am switching my pick at the last second. I'm going to go with the Bills.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I was almost going to say that the Eagles and Rams took the most thought, but this one certainly took the most for me. If you've watched the podcast for a while, I think I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. I'm a Panthers fan, and I grew up on Cam Newton. It's nice to see Lamar Jackson be successful as a mobile quarterback. And this one is really tough. The snow makes it a difficult one. Zay Flowers not being there makes it difficult. But I just think that I get it. It's a different team, different defense. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson had amazing performances against the Steelers on the ground. Last time they played the Bills, it was the run game that put the Bills under. They got crushed. That's not happening. But just to be clear, there's nobody getting crushed in this game. I think this is going to be super close. I'm going to go give the edge to the Ravens because of the running game. I know the snow is going to be an issue. I think they probably win this one. Honestly, because of the snow, maybe lower scoring, 24-21, fun little shootout. If Justin Tucker, doesn't see the demons he's been seeing all season and kick the football out of the stadium or something. I feel like the Ravens have the edge here, but this is incredibly difficult. This, like the Commanders Lions game, is I would prefer to be the championship for this division. I would prefer for the AFC Championship be Ravens Bills and the NFC Championship be Commanders Lions. I think that'd be really fun. Sucks that one of these guys got to go out in the divisional round, but I think this should be a great football game. I'm going to give a slight edge to Baltimore here. Sometimes that's worked for me, sometimes it hasn't, but I got faith in them. I got faith in the run game. I think I'm just excited to see a really good football game.